Before I get into my voter enthusiasm scenario that I created, I wanted to briefly touch on the comments that led to this video. So someone commented on my Donald Trump top 10 reasons he will win video, which was simultaneously released with my Biden top 10 reasons Biden will win video. And he basically said he needs encouragement because he doesn't want to believe the polls. And I think there are some things that Trump voters could look to for some sort of encouragement. And there are two things. One, when it comes to the swing states, he is still, as of October 8th, so 2 days after I posted the other video on October 6th, as of October 8th, he is still polling better than he was in 2016 in the swing states as a group, if you look at the swing states as a group. Now, the other thing is that his enthusiasm is just absolutely nuts, comparatively speaking. This isn't the only comment on my video that I got that was in support of Donald Trump. It is just absurd how many people are coming out of the woodwork to support Donald Trump online. The response rate and the engagement rate is easily 10-1 when it comes to comments, when it comes to people supporting. Now, of course, we have the anonymity of being online, so there still is room for a shy Trump voter, but nonetheless, online, it looks like a lot of people are pushing for Trump. So if I were to bet and I had a rate of return of 50% where I only get back exactly what I bet, if I had to bet now, I would bet Joe Biden simply because of how the numbers look. But we've been fooled by the numbers before, and in 2016, it was because the working class was underpolled. I believe they're still underpolled, but the difference was about 3%. So when we look at these numbers, Biden's ahead right now by about 9.1%, and I can fix this real quick. It's something like 40%, 60%. So yeah, that's closer. So let's just say he's about 9.1% ahead right now in the polling. And don't worry, I'll orient you to this here in a second. What is the Trojan horse that people are missing that Donald Trump can still win this election? And my personal belief is voter enthusiasm, 100%. So I wanted to build a scenario real quick that demonstrates what the issue with voter enthusiasm is and how it can affect the election. So let me orient you to my spreadsheet here. This is my voter enthusiasm spreadsheet. This is non-scientific for demonstrations only, but let's go over this. So using 2016 numbers, there was about 250 million eligible voters in the United States. However, there's only about 155 million in 2016 of registered voters. The people who actually came out to vote was 139 million. Now, we need to use registered voters because registered voters are the pool of people who we're going to pull from who are actually going to vote, which become actual voters in this scenario. Using Gallup's numbers of party affiliation, let's just use these numbers right here from Gallup. So 29% Republican, 40% Independent, and 30% Democrat. Those don't really match national numbers, but this is just how people are responding to Gallup. So let's go ahead and use those numbers. So let's say 29% of registered voters are Republican, 40% of registered voters are Independent, and 30% are Democrat. This means of registered voters, Republicans would likely get 44,950,000 just from registered Republicans, if obviously 100% of the registered voters voted. Democrats would get about 46,500,000. And I apologize for the audio. My throat's been bothering me for the past 2 weeks. You could probably hear it in the videos. I'm just going to assume, for illustration purposes, that 100% of Republicans and 100% of Democrats are voting respectively for their party. I know that's not the case, but this, whatever. For our purposes, it doesn't matter. This is for illustration. Now, I decided to reflect the polling in independent numbers. So the best way to reflect this polling in independent numbers is to give independents leaning Republican, about 40% of them are leaning Republican and 60% are leaning Democrat, which means 37,200,000 are going to go to the Democrats, 24,800,000. So when you look at this all in total, the difference between Democrats and Republicans is 13,950 out of 153,450 votes, which would mean that there is a 9.1% Biden lead in the polling. So this is indicative of current polling as it sits on October 8th. Now, we need some sort of mechanism to measure enthusiasm and how that's going to affect people's voting habits. So looking at Emerson polling, I know this is from April, but I couldn't find anything more recent from Emerson polling. Again, this is demonstration purpose. 36% of Republicans are extremely excited, and 22% of Democrats are extremely excited. So let's go over to this, and we'll just start inputting the numbers. This is Republican, this is Democrat, so we'll just start putting the numbers. You have 36%, extremely excited, you have 36%, very excited, you have 28%, and 26% that are not that excited. Now that we have the distribution of enthusiasm, let's take a look at what happens if we just start to make some assumptions here. So let's make the assumption that 100% of people who are extremely excited are going to vote. 100% of those that are very excited are going to go vote. And 80% of those that are mildly excited go and vote. And people that are not that excited, only 50% of those people go and vote. So what ends up happening is you end up getting 62 million Republican votes. Let's add those same factors over to the Democrats, and you have 67. This is a percentage. So I have long held that Donald Trump is going to outperform the polls between 3 and 5%. There are two factors that are actually going to affect this. And the first one is that Donald Trump is going to overperform at the working class, which is still being underrepresented in a lot of these polls. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that there are a considerable amount of people who are shy Trump voters. By and large, Republicans typically are less likely to respond to polling questionnaire. But that being said, there is an extreme amount of public pressure to not be associated with this president. He's not too well liked. He's made fun of every day on cable news. He's made fun of every day on nighttime talk shows. He's made fun of every day in daytime talk shows. He's made fun of in the papers. It is not socially acceptable to be for Trump. The only ones who have dug their heels in are the ones that are extremely, and very excited about Donald Trump. So what ends up happening is maybe with Republicans, that shy vote would reflect itself in the ones that are not very enthusiastic. Maybe they actually show up to the polls. Then you have a 2% lead. Even though Biden is showing a 9% lead nationally, maybe they show up. Maybe there is a shy vote and it would be reflected in 5% more independents actually who are going to vote for Trump that wouldn't otherwise answer a question from a pollster who said that they were. So you end up doing that, and you end up with Biden actually loses by 2.1%. Let's change that back. The fact that this shy vote, which most likely happens, is not reflected in national polling, that would mean that if this is the case, that Trump is actually only 5% behind, and you once again give this enthusiasm spread, and this is actually how it shakes out, this is what the election would end up being. Biden wins the popular vote by about 600,000 votes. Donald Trump loses the popular vote, but I can assure you, if the election is this close, Donald Trump wins over 300 electoral votes in this situation. So if there really is a silent 5% of independents, and that's just independents, we're not talking about Republicans or Democrats, we're talking about independents. If 5% of the independent votes in this scenario are silent Trump voters, and this is the distribution of voters and how they shake out, meaning that this is the number of people who are extremely excited to vote for Trump, and this is how they turn out at the polls, well, then we have a really, really close race, even though nationally the polls are currently 9% Joe Biden. So if you needed some sort of motivation, if you're a Trump supporter and think that Donald Trump is going to lose this election hands down, I can assure you that there are still a lot of people, myself included, who back in 2016 wrote off Donald Trump. And today, even though Donald Trump is averaging 9% behind in the polls, I still think that Donald Trump has at least a 1 in 3 chance of winning this election. And it's simply because I have had a 10-to-1 response on my Joe Biden video versus Donald Trump video. Trump supporters are coming out en masse. So it begs the question, and we'll get into this a little bit, it begs the question, how is there a 5% shy Trump voter when Donald Trump voters are extremely vocal, especially online? And I'm a new YouTuber, so I have no idea what the normal response rate is between conservatives or Trump supporters and non-Trump supporters. But given that there's been an overwhelming response by Trump supporters, it's hard to believe that there is a shy vote. That being said, these who are extremely excited and very excited, I'm assuming those are the ones who are commenting on my YouTube channel. I'm assuming these are the guys who have no issue letting people know that they're Donald Trump. They're not shy about it, and they're vocal about it. Because, to be honest, it's become kind of a taboo thing to be for Trump. And at some point, you kind of just make enough people mad where they're like, yeah, you know what, I'm voting Trump. But that doesn't mean that an independent who barely pays attention to politics, who maybe has a sneaking suspicion that he doesn't support what Democrats want, he's not for, getting his taxes raised, but it's not cool to say I'm for Trump because I want more money in my pocket. It's also not cool to say I'm for Trump because I want the economy to grow, and I'm unhappy about the fact that the elderly are being targeted by a pandemic. But at the same point, we have to live our lives. That's not a very popular opinion to have publicly. So those types of voters who are not extremely or very likely might be a part of this group. They might be a part of this group, and like I said, maybe it comes out in 70%. And if that happens, you start to see this lead shrink based solely upon nothing more than the shy voter and enthusiasm. So anyway, that was just something I sort of thought of off the top of my head. If I were 100% behind Donald Trump, I wouldn't necessarily lose faith at this point, even though there is immense pressure for you to lose faith in Donald Trump with polling. I wouldn't do that. In fact, I read an article as I was thinking about this video. I wish I had saved it. I didn't. Did I? I don't think I didn't save it. Anyway, what it was saying was that on October 22nd, Donald Trump was double digits behind in 3 national polls. Don't lose faith. I do think that if this enthusiasm gap does exist, I think that's this year's Trojan horse. 2016 was the working class being undercounted. They're still being undercounted. I think some polls have tried to account for them. I don't think they've done a very good job. But this year, I believe it's the enthusiasm separation that is going to make all the difference in whether Donald Trump wins the election or not wins the election. I guess a better way to put that would have been to say, or lose the election. Anyway, so those were my thoughts when I was thinking, what is the Trojan horse that people could be missing when the polls are so bad for Donald Trump? What is the Trojan horse? And if Donald Trump wins the election, if the polls stay this bad and Donald Trump wins the election, it will 100% be because of the enthusiasm difference. At a Joe Biden rally, Joe Biden has to usually drive through Trump supporters just to get to his venue, and then his venue has like 12 people in it. There are more people standing outside holding Trump flags than there are inside of a Joe Biden event. So there is definitely an enthusiasm gap, and if Donald Trump wins and the polls show him behind by 9%, I think it's time that we sit down and figure out a better way to do polling, because this type of polling sucks. Now, if Joe Biden wins, but he only wins by a little bit, once again, I still think we need to sit down and take a look at how we poll, because we're missing something here. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and family. Make sure you like and subscribe for more content. I will be putting out as many videos as I can. I'm still pushing through. Thank you to all those who just newly subscribed. I was going to do a push and see if I could get to 100 subscribers by the election. It looks like I'm going to surpass that, so what the hell, let's shoot the moon. 1,000 subscribers. Just kidding. I don't think I'll get to 1,000 subscribers by the election. But nonetheless, like this, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you.